Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. David Schwartz, who is Ripple's CTO and co-creator of the XRP ledger, has stated on Twitter today that he believes that there can be instances where it actually can make sense to make transactions for XRP on-demand liquidity, specifically utilizing XRP as a bridge currency. There could be instances where it makes sense to increase the price of those transactions, which on the surface might sound counterintuitive, so I could understand if that would be your gut reaction to feel that way. Because after all, XRP, in conjunction with RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, it's designed to bring costs down. So why are we talking about potentially anyway, increasing transaction fees? And by the way, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be specifically transaction fees on the XRP ledger. Really, more so what we're talking about is exchange fees. Because look, obviously XRP transacting it's not free, but it almost is. It's fractions of a penny currently. And even that can, that doesn't have to be static. Getting into that would be outside the scope of this particular video here. But it's just an idea of how do you manage extreme volume quantities coming in, especially in light of what we saw today with the XRP transactions just going through the roof, ultimately retracing. And interestingly enough, the volume was increasing as the XRP price was going down because there was just sell side pressure. So interesting stuff. So anyway, I do want to talk about that. And then I also want to talk a bit, I got some information, some stories about institutional money continuing to come into the space and where it's coming from, which I think you will find interesting. Now, I do want to be clear that I don't have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I just think it's interesting to talk about these topics as an enthusiast, and I run this channel because it is my most favoritist hobby that I have ever had. That is all that it is, though. All right, so somebody named Steve Goldbrunson tweeted out the following, which started this thread. When is a platform going to be developed that can truly handle high volume? It does not exist now. And I can certainly understand the exasperation there for sure. You can think about, that's why there's this joke I mentioned in my very last video. There's a joke how can you tell that crypto is in a bull market? Well, the answer is Coinbase is down. It's the butt of a joke now. And I like Coinbase, mind you. And it's I have an account there. I'll continue to use them, but I don't have a high level of confidence that I can count on them when it might matter most, frankly, because when there's all sorts of high volume, that might be an opportune time in the future for me to sell something. And if they're down, I sure as hell can't do that. So I understand where people are coming from with all this, unquestionably so. Now, David Schwartz responded, though, and wrote the following. Just raise fees as volume increases to keep load manageable. And so, again, on the surface, that might sound counterintuitive. And really, even when I first read that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's what's the thought behind that? I was very intrigued. And somebody named Dictator Know-It-All responded to that tweet from David Schwartz and wrote, I hope that's a joke, David. And you know what? Hey, fair enough. But David did explain and wrote the following. Nope, a very small fee would allow the exchange to stay operational, giving their users a much better result. Excuse me. The fee would largely be borne by people who place orders that never execute, that is, manipulators and high-frequency traders who disproportionately load the exchange. And so at this point in the conversation specifically, we're talking about an increase in an exchange fee. On-demand liquidity comes up in just a moment, but not in that particular tweet. And so it's just the idea of throttling the activity that occurs on the exchange in some sort of, I guess I don't know if it sounds like too much of a negative connotation, but some sort of artificial way. But is it really artificial if it has to do with what the system can handle? Maybe it is. I guess I'd have to think about whether or not that's a reasonable label. I'm not going to sit here and ponder that as I record this video, but maybe it's a fair point. Dictator Know-It-All responded and wrote, but banks who use on-demand liquidity will be high-frequency traders, essentially meaning back to square one, high banking fees, which I thought Ripple was all about, surely. And David Schwartz, to his credit, responded, explaining his position further. During a rare surge, an extra penny per transaction is not going to matter to on-demand liquidity. But to someone who is placing many offers very unlikely to execute and canceling them, it's a strong disincentive. So you still get hit with it. And so what he's talking about there is, look, it affects on-demand liquidity. Wherever there's a corridor open with RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, volume is absolutely going to matter here. Like even volume, just for the crypto space as a whole, not just XRP. So it would affect on-demand liquidity. If there's an outage and it's not just because of XRP volumes, it's because of the exchange volume, you could have a serious problem there. And so you're not talking about ramping up fees to the point where it no longer makes sense to utilize XRP, as a bridge currency. And as he cited here, and this is just an example, but he's saying an extra penny, even just an extra penny though, would is at scale provide a tremendous disincentive, as stated here by David Schwartz. So to me, that actually, logically, that makes sense. And so if there's another side to it as to why maybe that's not ideal, I would love to hear, because the way that I form my opinions in life is I like to hear opposing viewpoints, and then I just decide what makes the most logical sense to me. And so I don't know what the other side of this is, so I'd want to hear that before I have a firm opinion, but I'm just sharing with you right now, reading through this here, it doesn't sound nuts. It definitely does not sound nuts. And David Schwartz then wrote, remember, the alternative seems to be the exchange not working for anyone. So you're talking about potentially, even like in this situation, maybe it's just another penny fee, but it's either that or the exchange goes down. Now you might say, okay, or it's not that, or maybe you just, make sure that your servers can handle the load. Okay, fair enough. But that seems to, for whatever reason, I don't have a tech background. I don't know what the reason is, but it seems to be a very tremendous problem for pretty much every exchange on the planet. So what if, even though maybe you keep going that direction so that you don't have those instances where you can't handle the load, but in an instance where there is a load problem, this is a backup option, right? Because isn't it better to have that than to have the exchange go down? That, to me, that makes logical sense. And this is why, again, I'd love to hear the opposing viewpoint on this, because I'm willing to be persuaded, absolutely. But what David is stating here seems to make logical sense, at a minimum, on the surface. And he's a sharp guy, obviously. David then wrote, you could also give users surge credits based on funds on deposit or past trades. So if someone needs to do a dozen trades during a surge, their likely surge fee is 0. So there's a way to balance it out effectively there. All right, on to the next topic now. Here's a piece from the Daily Huddle. Ivy League universities betting on Bitcoin, with Harvard, Yale, and Brown endowments on board, says the report. And, excuse me, so this is institutional money. And I can never seem to recall all the categories of what defines institutional money off the top of my head, but I'll make a stab, and I could probably name several of them. Public pension funds, endowment funds, by the way, which is what this is. This is the definition of institutional money. Funds from insurance companies, and hedge funds. There are at least one or two more that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but like I said, whatever. Somebody out there's like, unsubscribe, you couldn't name all them. And I'm like, all right, bye, Felicia. But into this piece now. Ivy League endowment funds have reportedly been buying Bitcoin through Coinbase and other crypto exchanges for months. The Harvard University Endowment, the largest in the world for an academic institution, with over $40 billion in assets under management, as well as Yale and Brown's endowments, are reportedly buying crypto assets, reports CoinDesk, citing sources familiar with the investments. Those sources say many university endowments in the U.S. are quietly allocating crypto in their portfolio. Some may have held accounts with Coinbase since mid-2019. My friends, you're talking about roughly as early as more or less a year and a half ago. Now, that's something, because that was not leaking out to the press. But that was, if this is true, and I could buy it. I could certainly buy it. They've been accumulating since, summer of 2019? That's like they didn't want people to know what they were doing then. And there could be an array of reasons for that. But, obviously, look, the more time passes, the more mainstream crypto comes, the more acceptable it is in the world of traditional finance to have some exposure to the cryptocurrency asset class. But even a year and a half ago, it was more taboo than it is today, substantially, actually. Because at this point, mind you, we're having an institutionally driven crypto bull market. And back then, you're talking about a bear market, effectively, right? I think arguably so. And so coming out amidst something like that, when other entities out there, whether it's a publicly traded company or actual institutions making purchases, you didn't have your Michael Saylors of MicroStrategy. You didn't have not that much word anyway of public pension funds investing in crypto, though we did, in February of 2019 get first word of that from Morgan Creek Digital, which is Anthony Pompliano and Mark Yusko's firm. But still, the optics of it probably not ideal. But here's a quote. Most have been in it at least a year. I would think they will probably discuss it publicly at some point this year. I suspect they would be sitting on some pretty nice chunks of return. Yeah, no kidding. If you're talking about buying back then, oh man, the multiplier effect even to this point would be tremendous. I don't know exactly what the price was. I can't recall middle of 2019. But even if it was during the spike when it got up to 14,000, well, hell, you know what the price of Bitcoin is today? Substantially higher. And I'd be willing to bet it's a small percentage of what they're investing in anything anyway. So it's not gonna it's gonna be completely reckless to do this. They're just recognizing, hey, looks like this is here to stay. Let's get some exposure to it. That doesn't sound kooky. In 2018, the information also reported that Harvard, Stanford, Dartmouth College, Dartmouth College. Words are hard. Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the University of North Carolina had invested in at least one crypto fund. Yale Endowment Chief Investment Officer David Swinson, who is often referred to as the Warren Buffett of institutional investing, is known to have invested in 2 venture funds dedicated to cryptocurrency. Well, how about that then? Interesting stuff. And the party's just getting started, my friends. Just imagine. What are we going to see unfold in 2021 in the world of crypto and beyond? There are some people, including CZ, who is the CEO of Binance, cryptocurrency exchange Binance. He thinks that it could be several years before this bull cycle runs its course. So I don't know how long it's going to last, but it is going to be endlessly entertaining and interesting. And I'm just thrilled that I've been here long enough that I've had ample time to get myself positioned for all this. And I do continue to make purchases. My XRP bags are packed, so I'm not buying XRP. Haven't in X number of months, however long it's been. But I am buying other cryptocurrencies actively. So just making sure I'm doing what I can to try and get mine. Isn't that what we're all trying to do, though? But thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate the support. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.